Hi there, and a very warm welcome to this week's video, to our noise scrubbing series, where we have a look at where to mitigate or to reduce noise inside of Octane. And this week we are going to take a look at materials, and if I'm correct in my assumption, which has been wrong in the past, that might be a very short video. So let's grab your coffee and let's keep going. Alrighty, as so often with my two-part videos, there are some things I just simply didn't include or people pointed out to me in the comments. So we're going to have a little lighting recap in which I'm going to give you more information about lighting still. As someone in a conversation after I posted last week's video pointed out, I didn't include light portals, so I'm going to change that now. I didn't include them because they are a little bit of a mixed bag. Light portals are not lights but materials. You can find them under materials, great, and then Octane portal material. If you bring them in, they come in with a black shader ball. And it's supposed to help sampling by funneling light through small openings. So when we go outside of the camera, you can see I made a polygon that is exactly the size of the opening, with the normal of the polygon looking inwards, like the direction of the light. You should also always use as few polygons as possible, so me using just one polygon is perfect. And this whole thing comes with the promise of better sampling when you have an opening like this as windows or something like that. So let's have a look what light portals actually do when sampling. And welcome to light portal chart time. So like last week, we have a camera here in the room and we shoot rays. And the rays trying to find a light source. In this case, we have an HDRI, but it also can be a daylight system. So what we are going to do is shoot rays against those skylights, but then the room gets in our way and those rays are capped off and therefore create shadow. And again, we are reliant on a small portion of randomly shot rays to go through the opening and actually catch the light. To better the sampling, we could place a light source in the opening to attract rays. And a light portal is doing exactly the same with one difference. A light source would capture the rays and give them the light's energy, but a light portal is leaving them through. So the rays can sample whatever is beyond the portal on their trajectory. You can basically think of the light portal as a ray magnet. Next, let me explain why I said light portals are a mixed bag. If your scene importance aligns with the opening in your wall, so basically if you have a sun shining inside of your room, then you probably don't need a light portal because the importance aligns with the hole in your wall. If you have an HDRI with very low importance or very weak light direction, or even worse, if you have the importance on the other side of the room, of course you're wasting a lot of rays shooting against the wall here, and in this case, the light portal actually helps tremendously. If you're sure that none of those importance rays are necessary for your scene, you can actually turn off the importance of your HDRI, so those rays are not wasted and all can be allocated through your portal. So let's have a look at all of this theory in practice. I pre-rendered some scenes here, so we have a daylight system with the portal off in this case, and I zoomed in 200% so you might see the noise a little bit better. When I turn on the portal here, you can see there's not a lot of difference, and this comes down to that our importance is on the same direction as the opening in our wall. But you can see we gain a 2-second extra render time. Basically, the same goes for a smaller opening, so we have 14 seconds. It's really noisy, and that comes down to the small opening as we discussed in last week's video. So it comes as no surprise that if I turn on the portal, the noise is still roughly the same. In contrast to this, if we are using an HDRI and turn it in a way so the sun hits the back wall and we don't get importance and only indirect light into the room, this situation profits immensely from a light portal. So let me show you. If I turn it on, you can see the immediate reduction of noise, and we can get a little bit of extra noise freeness out of it if we turn off importance sampling. It's just a tad, it's not a lot. Let's decrease the opening size again, and this leads to more noise as expected, but with the portal it leads to even better results, so you can see the stark difference that the portal makes in such a situation. Also, turning off importance sampling in this situation helps even more, so you can see a clear jump in noise freeness here. and the rest can only be done with more samples. Okay, I think the material portal section might classify as a quick tip on its own, but you know me, I like to get as much information as possible in there. So let's finally talk about materials. Let's start out with a simple one, which is the diffuse material. So let's create a diffuse material here and assign it to the shader ball, and you can see the shader ball is really bright. What I'm talking about here is entropy, or that there's always energy loss when light hits an object. So basically 0.9 or even 1 is the values you should never use. So when you use white materials, or when you want to do white materials, what I always go for is values between 0.75 and 0.8. Those are bright enough in most cases. If you Google Albedo and hit the Wikipedia entry, then scroll down, you find this nice chart here, which show you the overall reflectance values of materials. So for example, 85% is the whitest material. Not even clouds are that white. So in other words, what I'm saying is tune down the materials, and if they look too dark, then brighten up your lights instead of brightening up your materials. Okay, thank you, Raphael, for the material lesson, but what does this have to do with noise? Well, it might be a little bit of a fringe case, but let me open my picture viewer here and show you some examples. This is a room where, except for the windows, everything has a completely white material. And since everything is completely white, no energy is lost, and with the high enough trace depth, it looks really artificial because we don't have any dark shadows. Also, have a look at the rendering time. If I turn down the material to 80%, you suddenly see a reduction in render time as well as some realistic shadows popping up, because now the light has some absorption with every bounce. Back to the noise argument, so if I would kept the render time of the unrealistic material brightness scene the same as with the normal material brightness scene, then it would have turned out more noisy. So there's a couple of benefits. Not only does your render time decrease or your noise decrease, but also your scene looks much more realistic. If you would have gotten with the wrong material settings, this is almost impossible to correct, so I tried to correct it in Photoshop and the rendering still looks very flat, in contrast to what you would get with the right values. Two more additions to this. So one, it goes for all the wavelengths. So even if you have a material that has pure red, you should never get the red value to 1. So go and make it 0.75 to 0.8, because this would have the same effect but for a single wavelength of light. And this really depends on the size of your scene. So if you have a small scene like this, you can correct with your lights and everything will be just looking great and fine. But the bigger your scene is, the more it depends on the quality of materials you're making. Not sure if that's the right place to do it, but I'm doing it anyway and dropping the noise cancelling knowledge bomb that is connected to all of it. And it's really simple. There's only two things you need to know. So one thing is reduce energy in your scene, so the rays don't have the energy to create noise to begin with. And the second one is increase the chance of the rays to find the light. And we have talked about this extensively in the last tutorial with lights. Let's show you what this means in practice by making a metallic material here out of our diffuse, and then go for the SSS light. And you can see we have caustics here again, and you can see noise settling in here. Now let's think of what I just said. There are two ways to remove noise. One is to reduce the energy, and the other is to increase the chance of the rays to hit the light. Let's try the energy method first. So let's go to specular, and you can see it's set to 1, which, similar as the diffuse, gets the light and redistributes it throughout the scene without any absorption. And while metals can have a higher value than diffuse objects, it should never be 1 as well. To really show you the difference in noise, let's actually shave off half of it by going with 0.5, and when it finished render with the same samples, you can see the noise is a lot less. This is because half of the light's energy is now absorbed by the material instead of causing noise. Now that we've proven we can reduce the noise by reducing the energy, let's also prove the point that we can reduce noise by increasing the chance of the rays to hit the light. Let's reset the material to its original state, and then we are going to increase the chance of the rays to hit the light. How is this even possible? Basically, the simple answer is roughness. So to increase the roughness, what I always going to do is go to GGX Energy Preserving. I have a tutorial on BRDFs in the upper right corner if you're interested. Then go to roughness and also overdo it here with a value of 0.5 and let it render. And then you can see, yes, also the noise has decreased. Just to prove my point, let's make a screenshot here and we can see we have the first render, which is very noisy with caustics. So those are reflection caustics here. And then we decrease the intensity and we get less noise, or we increase the roughness and got less noise than before. Alright, and for those who scream at your screens that of course the representation of the material is vastly different, I have overdone it here just to prove the point. And here's actually another mantra of mine: intent goes over optimization. So if the optimization destroys your creative vision or what you have in mind, then just don't do it. Or better yet, do it, but go to the point where it's the threshold to altering the scene and not noticing it. But as promised, let's go into chart time and explain why actually roughness can increase the chance to hit the light. Welcome to reflection chart time. So we are talking about glossy reflections. This means that you only get one angle out as one angle comes in. So basically the old sentence that angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. With such a system, the reflection is locked into place based on the incoming angle with no room to vary. So if it doesn't hit the light, it simply doesn't hit the light. Recap to last week, so if we increase the light size, it has more chances to reach the light, and therefore that's another method to increase the chance of the rays hitting the light. Another way to increase the chance, of course, could be to fan out your rays, so making your surface rough. Because then, with important sampling, the ray has the location of the light and can shoot a light ray directly to the light and find and hit it. So the chances increase drastically. Let me show you another really good example for this. Welcome to maybe the best example I could give for roughness. This is a scene I used in the Understanding Caustics video, link in the upper right corner if you're interested. Also, I think I haven't posted the scene on Patreon, so this time with the video, the scene goes online. So what we have here is a really small, really bright light source, and then we have some plastic keycaps with transparency, and we are using the photon tracing kernel to get some caustics. If I leave this rendering for some time, you can see the caustics come along nicely, but you can see those are fireflies here all over the place. And basically fireflies are just noise, or in other words, they are caustics. And with a long enough render time, they will all clear up. But you can do the trick, and you already know that, and bring in some roughness. So let's go and bring in just a minimal amount of roughness, so 0.001. And this actually helps. So instead of rendering this, and this needs a lot of samples to clear up, let's actually go and look at the picture viewer one more time. So this is the rendering where we have our object without the roughness, and this is the same amount of samples with the roughness. And you can see it clears up so much better without the keycaps looking too different. So as you can see here, a little roughness can go a long way. And as you've seen in the image here, the roughness is really very little. So you might not think about that, but it's actually the case. Though again, this is not a magic trick. It still needs a whole lot of samples to clean up and look nice. Welcome back to our material ball scene. I have 2, maybe 3 more things to you how you can reduce noise in materials. The really cool thing is that all we have done today is in the basic building blocks of materials, so the chances are high that you can reduce noise by just following those in your materials you create. Of course, I probably have overlooked the one or the other thing. Please let me know in the comments so I can make a recap section in the next video and go over those, as I did with the light portals in this one. This one perfectly ties into our roughness theme, so what I've done is create a Octane metallic material and a Octane noise, and then what we need to do is put that into the bump, and then what we need to also do is get a projection here and go with the trusted XYZ to UVW, then on all axes make it incredibly small, so 0.002 for example. And you can see this creates a lot of noise and also those weird patterns. What I try to show you here is while we have a surface structure that creates roughness in reality, the renderer, as we established before, can work more efficiently if we get the roughness synthetically. Coming back to this material, what I'm saying is never rely on noise, normals or anything surface structured to create roughness. Always create your roughness with the renderer, so something like this. Let's go for 0.25 and then add structure on top of that with the bump or normal map. This is still way too strong here, so let's go with 0.05 maybe. So if we go outside of our camera and go close, we have a surface structure together with a roughness that comes from the material, not the noise. And this is the right way to go. That gives us the least noise possible. Not sure why I haven't thought of this in the chapter before, but the SSS light shows that effect much more critically. So be part of our experience here with the displacement, which to no surprise has the same effect as the bump or a normal map. So when I leave the material glossy and add a stone displacement texture here to it, so let's turn on displacement, you can see that we get a lot of noise all over the place. So here it's the same thing. We go to our material and add in some roughness, and this will take care of it vastly because now we are not reliant on the displacement to distribute our rays and can rest on the shoulders of our important sampled roughness. In case you haven't seen, no more fireflies around here that were prevalent before. Last but not least, I want to talk about refractive materials. And we have seen already that all that we said and established about other materials goes for them as well. For example, with the keycaps, a little roughness goes a long way. What I want to talk about here though is not the roughness, but in the materials common section, the fake shadows, and I mentioned that quite a lot. So fake shadows gets rid of the refractive caustics and therefore makes your render a lot more noise free. Of course, it doesn't look as realistic anymore, but you can decide whether you want the fake shadows and then choose other options as roughness in the materials or bigger light sources to get rid of your noise, or if you want to just simply tick that off and then be done with it. Alrighty, let's summarize what we learned so far. Noise is always caused by high energy in your scene. There's two ways to deal with it. Either you absorb a lot of this energy and therefore there's less energy in the scene, or you increase the chances of the rays hitting the energy-giving object, meaning mostly the light. First can be done by decreasing the energy contribution of your materials by darkening them down at least to a realistic level. Increasing the chances to hit a light source can be increased by making light sources as large as possible, increasing roughness in your materials, and blazing light sources where they are seen by most of the surfaces in your scene. But remember my mantra, intent comes before optimization, so if the optimization changes your result too much, then you should leave it as you have it in your head. And in the next part of our series, we are going to have a look at the exact same principles that we talked about right now, but in the rendering context. And this concludes our video. Thank you very much for watching. Let's thank those people who made it all possible. My patrons. Especially my €50 tier subscribers, Shields Augustinen, Just a Frickin', and Leon Studio TV. Also, of course, a huge thank you for my €15 tier subscribers, Render King, Alessandro Bonchio, Alessio De Vecchi, Bavana, BVR, Chris Fritchie, Christian Grajewski, Erbe Plus Academy, George Luna, Graham Bucknell, Joel Muckemer, John Edward, Chris Clemson, Ludger, Muradan Axos, Nico Straub, Part 1 of 2, Kuok An Dang, Raiko, Renato Marquez, Reshock, Shamus Johnson, Shiro 2049, Tagori M. Vilela, Terry Wayne Ranson, Touch My Render, Yasin Rupp, and Shibue Xiang. Thank you all so very much for making it possible to produce those videos that you all enjoy. Welcome to the finish line of this video. Nice you all made it here. Again, thank you very much for watching the whole thing. I'm pretty certain some of you are just skipping to the chapter mark, and I'm totally fine with that. Despite this video can be adapted to most path tracers, next week I'm actually going to make a cycles video again. So the part 3 with the render settings comes the week after. As always, if you have any suggestions, you can leave them in the comments down below. And while you're at it, you can show your support by posting a crystal ball again to symbolize our material wall. With that, I say a great start into the new week, a good time, and happy material polishing. Bye!